Yeah, my bad. So I've been trying to work on this and trying to smooth this thing out. I had to take it down, had to bring it back up. Yikes. So it's been kind of hard working on this system. Well, this new one that I'm working with. So this is my first test as far as this goes. So one of the key things that I'm going to be talking about is something that has been going on through the entirety of the black community as far as our actual political stance in today's politics. Excuse me, I'm still working on this stuff, but yeah. So definitely one of the reasons why I ended up and I made the switch from solely being Democratic to Republican about one a half a year ago, a year to a year and a half ago. And one of the main reasons why I ended up changing over to being Republican was because being a Republican didn't stand. I mean, being a Democrat as it stood during 2016 and now, it just does not stand alongside of black values. One of the main things that I had an issue with was the mere fact that we, as in a black community, have been plagued with the monster of abortion. So that was one of the key things that I actually went into when I made my initial decision. I felt as if when the CDC came out with their numbers concerning the death rate of abortions when it came to the black community, disproportionately affected our actual power. I'm going to say it again. The disproportionate use of abortion in the black community directly correlates with our current power, especially politically. In order to be able to have any structure or any power within politics, you have to have numbers. Being 12% of the policy, of being 12% of the entire U.S. population means we do not have enough numbers to politically move the needle any which way. Now that's first. That's the first thing that I changed over for was because of the Democrats pushing for policies, especially the Obama administration when Obama was originally, and that junk is messing with me. I had to cut it off because I'm listening to myself talk and I'm listening to that junk at the same time, so it's making me confused. All right, so yeah, so the Obama administration had so many policies that they wrote that even before Obama even before he became the president of the United States, he ended up putting policies in Chicago himself that put Planned Parenthood in many of these black communities and even then, we know that disproportionately, we've killed more black boys through abortion. We've killed more black boys, black children, using abortion, and for Obama to then be the main proponent in Chicago to push for Planned Parenthood in more spaces as a black man, that hurt us politically because now we don't have the numbers. So I had to go back over that because I was listening to myself in the headphones and it was making me really, it was distracting me. The second thing is gun rights. If you know anything about the history of Second Amendment laws, they were created during Jim Crow. Gun laws, like the gun laws that they're still pushing, are historically racist. The policies that the Democrats push on us as black people do not help us. Most of the policies, like the gun laws that they have been pushing, they are specifically made so that we will not be able to exercise the full Second Amendment. Historically, that is exactly what gun laws are for. Why would I vote for someone who goes against my own specific rights as a black person? So we got abortion that disproportionately kills black boys and black people, so that dwindles down our numbers. Secondly, we have gun laws who are historically racist. Gun laws are historically racist, and we are not able to actually practice those rights because, if you think about it, the gun laws that they have on record also pushes the needle for mass incarceration. So we'll go into that. When I found out how deep the Democrats were during the '94 crime bill, it blew my mind. Because now we're talking about them being complicit in mass incarceration. They are complicit in the mass incarceration of black men, specifically. So we come from the 70s and we got to deal with red line laws. Now we coming with the mass incarceration of black men in the prison, the school to prison pipeline. When we are placed in a position where our sole morals, because the morals of black people coming out of slavery in Jim Crow and afterwards was very conservative. Yes, we were fighting for our own rights, but politically, as we stood, we were conservative. The third reason why I made the switch over, not because I'm a bigot against the LGBT plus community, but during the Obama administration, he fought for those rights policy-wise over the black community. And this has been on record for every single Democrat. They do not fight for policies that directly correlate with us, as in black people, to be able to move forward. Now, I am not a black person who thinks that getting actual reparations is going to actually help us. Because if we do, knowing the GDP and understanding the economy, we wouldn't have an economy to stand on if that were the case. If we were to give every single descendant a check that amounts to the actual price tag for reparations. So my stance on reparations is I'm not asking nobody to hate me for no money. I'm not going to ask people who historically hate me to give me a handout, because I know historically from their track record they're not going to give it to us. They literally were in Congress, was it last year? just talking about the amount for the reparations. Has anybody heard anything from that? No. Because politically, we do not have the numbers to move the needle. Going back to what I said before, because we don't have the numbers due to mass incarceration, many felons not being able to vote, as well as we only being 12% of the population, it hurts us in the long term. Abortion hurts us in the long term. We are only 12% of the population. One of the other things that we don't talk about in the black community is the fact that we have not established ourselves to be people who fight for our own interest. We have been lacking in the ability to fight for our own interests. We cannot fight for economic wealth and then turn around and vote for politicians that do not have our interests, regardless if they're racist or not, have political stances that work in our favor. Again, abortion, high crime, high incarceration, gun laws. To be honest, every single one of the Democratic candidates have always pandered to us. They never sat down to the table and talked about policy to us. The policies that they put on the table and put out are not for us. Historically, we vote against our own interest. You got Clinton playing the saxophone. Joe Biden on here going to the Breakfast Club talking about if you ain't black if you don't vote for me. You got Hillary Clinton talking about going to the Breakfast Club talking about, oh, I got hot sauce in my purse. You got Pete Buttigieg or whatever his name. He over there drinking 40s in the park with Jesus and Meryl or whatever the comedy group is called. They always want to pander to the next. They don't want to. They always want to pander to us as far as pop culture, but they don't ever talk to us about policies that actually work for us. The most pro-black thing you can do right now, as it pertains to the black community, is be a Republican. I ain't saying you gotta love Trump. I'm not saying that, because even if he wins, he's out in 4 years. That doesn't help us in the long term. Another thing, a lot of people hate to talk about economics and how tax brackets actually affect those who are in business communities. I have many friends who have businesses, and if their businesses grow, they will be in a certain tax bracket that will cause taxes to rise on them. Because the Trump administration and the Republicans have now brought the tax brackets down, when we get large black corporations, they will also be affected. Are we not thinking long term? We have to think long term when it comes to politics, because for the most part, historically, we've been pandered to during the political process for voting during that session, and then afterwards, we hear nothing. It's crickets. Oh yeah, we planning on doing something. We planning on it. We planning on it. We working for it. They go on the night show, the daily show, go talk to people, and it's all pop culture and political discourse that actually does not affect us in a positive nature. Why do we continue to vote for people who do not have our best interests at hand? Charlemagne asked this man about the 94 crime bill, and he completely dodged the question. He didn't even apologize for the 94 crime bill. But that shows you, in many of the other things that have been going on with the Biden campaign, it shows us they do not have the people's best interests at hand. So if they don't have the people's best interests at hand, because they pushed out Bernie Sanders. They literally cheated Bernie Sanders 2 times in 2 political sessions. They pushed him out for their corporate Democrat candidate. Joe Biden is a corporate Democrat. The only thing they're thinking about is making money for the top percent. They only care about making money for those like Golden Sachs. And if you look in the Obama administration, so many of those corporatists were in his administration. Now let's talk about this race thing. I have yet to actually see video evidence of anything that Trump has said other than the fact that he was one of the main proponents to destroying the Central Park 5. But let's really get into it. It wasn't just Trump and the Trump administration that were the reason why the Central Park 5 actually were incarcerated for that long term. They were thrown under the bus. Now granted, he did do that. We know this for a fact. He made billboards and newsletters to do that. Look, I'm not going to argue that. But what I will argue for is the fact that right now, as it pertains to black people, he has made efforts to create a situation where the incarceration rate is lowered, especially for non-violent offenders. Guess who? Most non-violent offenders were locked up for marijuana were places like California. Kamala Harris. She was a DA in California. Falsely incarcerated many black men. She's a Democrat. Cory Booker, another Democrat. And these are people, what the Democrats have called us now, POCs. You're no longer called an African American because it's not politically correct. You're a person of color. Now, if we go back in history, we know if you flip it backwards, now you're calling yourself a colored person. I'm sorry, I'm not a colored person. I never will call myself colored. I will never be a person of color because that's ridiculous. Historically, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I am an African American. I am of African descent. I get my designator, and I get to love my history. You will not lump my history in with everybody else's history. You will not lump my history with everybody else's history. We have to stop going against our own interests. You have, and again, I'm gonna run it again. Abortion, gun laws, abortion, killing most of the black children, meaning our population is dwindling. Gun laws, mass incarceration, the 94 crime bill, mass incarceration. Voting against our own interests where policies are made against our interests. You want to know who else? What else is against Democrats? What goes against the Democrat stance? School choice. A black woman created the Washington, and there's a movie on Netflix that you might want to go watch. And it's about school choice and how the Obama administration fought tooth and nail so that certain children wouldn't be able to choose what school they went to. You should have the choice of what school you go to. You should have the choice for your children to know what school they're going to. We should not, the Obama administration and Biden were key proponents on fighting against school choice. And school choice, in all actuality, was made for black children, specifically in Washington, D.C. And then it spread across the country. But a lot of people have not talked about this. You can look in the history of school choice and see that the Obama administration fought tooth and nail against this black woman, and one of the main proponents was a black woman herself who fought against school choice. When in all actuality, school choice is something that's necessary for the education of all of our black children. You want to know who actually signed the bill for school choice? And the black woman who was pushing for black choice thanked, guess who? Donald Trump. But we don't talk about this stuff. We want to talk about, oh, we heard that he put kids in cages. Again, if you do the research, you will know that those kids were being placed in cages because of the defunding of those facilities by the Obama administration. There were more catches and releases and more deportations under the Obama administrations than there are for the Trump administration. To the fact, those cages started during the Obama administration. CNN had to do a retraction about it. They had to do a retraction about it and clarify that they were indeed placed in cages during the Obama administration. Please do the research. Please do the research. The information is literally out there. And I ain't talking about going to Fox News. I'm literally telling you the information is out there. When we talk about this whole the whole country situation, where he called African countries whole nations, that actually came from the guy who was snitching. I forgot what his name was. I'm gonna have to start doing. I'm starting to. I have to start working on. I have to start working on my my memory for these guys' names in these. But the information is out there. That came from somebody who actually who was trying to save their own tail during the Russiagate. During Russiagate, that's when the whole countries came out, and it was somebody who was actually snitching on Trump, because at the time he was all for it, but now he came out and made this comment. All of almost every single time that anybody has said anything on in the Democratic media, anytime that they've ever said anything about Donald Trump, in the beginning, it was always, oh, we heard from a source. We heard from a source inside the White House. We heard from a source. That's hearsay. But yet and still, they never talked about the stuff that we already had on tape coming from the Democrats. Literally, you can watch the video of Hillary Clinton saying that, calling black teens in between, I guess it was 16 and 25, were criminals. They were, what was the term she used? They were predators. This is on tape. This is on tape. I just played at the beginning of this video all of the things that Joe Biden himself has said. And we ain't talking just this latest comment. We ain't talking this latest comment. The rhetoric and the dog whistling for black people, urban, poor. Anytime you hear urban, poor, inner city from the Democrats and or Republicans, in most cases, they're talking about black people. Because a lot of times, they hide under the table the Hispanic community because of the illegal immigration stance. We never hear around election time, we always hear about black people. And of recent, now we're talking about black and brown people, adding the Hispanic community into the mix. You want to know why? Because the Hispanic community is growing in numbers, and after a while, if they were to get their way and open the borders and allow illegal immigrants to vote, they're going to be the next largest population that will rival us. They will rival us. In the they will rival us in politics. They want to open borders. Trump wants to close borders. Republicans want to keep borders closed. You're not going to tell me that if we're already lowering our numbers by killing all of our children through abortion, and then they want to open the floodgates and bring in a larger population that's right underneath the border, in that we're not going to disappear politically. Right now, voting for Democrats we are losing our footing. These are not liberals. They are not fighting for the liberation of people. They're not, especially not you. They're not fighting for you. They're not going to fight for you. They haven't fought for you. This is a very toxic relationship. We're getting beaten in the street, and the most that they can do is give out body cams. Granted, I like that, but you can't just do body cams. You have to also do other things with policy that creates a fairer platform for people, for black people specifically, because we are the most disenfranchised of the population. I don't hear nobody talking about no Arabs, Indians, Asians, none of that on the news, whether it be the Democrats and or the Republicans. I don't hear us talking about this, whether Democrat or Republican. On both sides of the fence, they always talk about black people and white people. They never talk about the other population of people. Last time I remember they said anything about Asians was the Virginia Tech incident. They have yet to talk about that. And one of the things that I do hate about some of the issues with people bringing up affirmative action is the fact that disproportionately black people, specifically black men, never actually get the benefit of affirmative action. In theory, it's supposed to, but if you look at it for what it is and look at the statistics of who actually get the benefit of the doubt, especially when it comes to affirmative action, it's white women. Who gets the most food stamps? White women. I'm not telling nobody to be a Trump supporter. Even if he wins, he's going to be out in 4 years. So that does not help us in the long term. That's why I'm saying until we get our own party, or we start working on getting more into politics than what we are, I have to stand as a conservative and or Republican. I cannot fight against my own interests, even if the people who are pushing the policies don't like me. A lot of people want to say, oh, Republicans are racist, this, that, and the third. At this point in time, we ain't got no choice. Either you're going to be a racist, you're going to get a racist Democrat, or you're going to be a racist Republican. Either it's going to be a racist, you're going to vote for a racist Republican or a racist Democrat. The thing that we need to start doing is looking at the policies themselves. Because if you vote for it, we know through the track record of the Democratic Party, if we vote for the Democrats, we're going to get a racist Democrat, and on top of that, they're not going to do anything that is going to help us policy-wise to get out of the rut that we currently reside in. Our middle class and the white middle class are not the same. the black middle class and the white middle class are not the same. So when they're talking about the middle class, Democrats specifically, they ain't talking about our middle class. It just is what it is. We can look at the amount of money that actually is in the black community as itself and see what it is that the Democrats even did for those people in that tax bracket. We have a lot of millionaires, and we have a lot of millionaires and billionaires who are black, yes, but they're only 1% out of 12% of the entire demographic. That's only 1% of 12% of the entire of all of America. We need to have at least 30 to 40% of that 12% to be millionaires and billionaires in order to have a political structure that works in our favor. I was watching the Breakfast Club, and I think it was Dr. Claude who spoke about the five levels in the building. Go look that up. Dr. Claude Anderson was talking about the 5 levels of politics. But as it stands, we ain't even got there yet. We're not there yet. We need to start voting for policies that actually help us in the long term. I know some people ain't gonna want to hear this. I know some of y'all are politically stuck on one side. I know some of y'all are politically stuck on one side. I hate that. I hate the fact that we're politically stuck on one side and we have yet to actually do anything about our current stance in America. We just had a brother get killed. Ahmaud Arbery just get killed. And what happened with that? We had a coalition, a black coalition go down there. And I'm gonna tell you something that's interesting. We had a black coalition go down there, armed to the teeth, protecting protesters. Now let's think about this. What type of weaponry did they have? AR-15s, AK-47s. Guess who's trying to stop us from having those types of weapons to be able to protect ourselves, especially from the racists, the actual people who are out here killing us? Guess who was fighting against that? The Democrats, specifically here in Virginia. So when we talk about 2A rights, we're trying to preserve rights for ourselves so that we may be able to build. How can we build if at every step we can't have our own police, we can't have our own policing because eventually our 2A rights are going to be stripped away from us. We haven't even gotten to the point where we're actually able to practice our 2A rights, which is a well-regulated militia. I ain't talking about hunting. I'm not talking about nothing else. A well-regulated militia. How can we have a well-regulated militia if they're taking away our gun rights? And we haven't even been able to practice our gun rights long term. Not in the black community, we haven't. You can't change my mind on this. You can't. I wish somebody would try. But the more I think about it, and the more evidences come out, and the more I start reading policy, and the more I start hearing about policies, and the more I start thinking about what it is that's been going on, I hit my red pill moment. I'm not voting against my own interests anymore. I'm not. I'm not going to vote for somebody who's going to destroy what's left of the black banks that we have, because they favor large corporations, because those large corporations give them kickbacks. Look at all of the mom and pop stores that have been destroyed and may not come back, even before the pandemic. Let's think about that. When my grandmother and grandfather used to grow up, they had black grocery stores that they would go to. They owned grocery stores on both sides of my family. Both sides. Black business owners will suffer again under the Democrats, because they will favor corporations that can give them kickbacks over the people. As a business owner myself, shoot, if I could get to the point where my business is in the tax bracket where I'm able to get those kickbacks and get that tax cut, I'm going to take it, because I can then reinvest money into my business. The reason why most black people hate to talk about economics and hate the fact that we always talk about the economy is because most black people don't understand how to run businesses. We left a time during segregation where black business was enlarged, where black business was forcefully put in place as the only vehicle for monies. But then again, we have to talk about how much of the actual population we were. At that time, we were more of the population. We have lost our foundation. We do not have an economic foundation. I was just talking to my wife about trying to figure out how to get into the hair business, buying stocks and buying product from an African hair weave company, because there are two, and one of them distributes out of Maryland. Possibly figuring out how to bring that technology here in America so that we can have our own established hair weave company. Since we can't stop people from stop our women from buying it, we might as well just join the bunch and start working it out. Talking to somebody about communities. These are things that we're not talking about on the Democratic side because they want to give you checks. AOC came out and was talking about, hey, nobody should go back to work. We should just wait for everybody and go on strike. That makes absolutely no sense. None whatsoever. To go on strike with no money, no way to continuously furnish our communities, let alone our small families. You can't sit here and say nobody should go back to work, because the poor people who don't have a government check coming in from the taxpayers, whether we like it or not, whether the economy is shut down or not, we don't have the opportunity to be able to continue to go that direction. We can't just not work, because disproportionately we are the ones who are affected. We have to think about the policies that they're trying to push. I've already talked about open borders being against us, especially politically. Abortion against us. Gun laws against us. We can't vote for people who do not have our own interests at hand. So the most pro-black thing you can do is literally not vote Democrat. Because if you look at all of the policies that they've been talking about, it don't help us. They're talking about things like the affordable, I forgot what which will call for all. That absolutely does not help us. The only people that it helps, Medicare for all, that's what it was. Medicare for all does not help us. It doesn't. Look at any of the socialized countries, and you will see their healthcare system is not where it should be. The reason why the pandemic is turning out the way it is for Americans is because we actually utilize the private sector to our advantage. Guess why most of the actual masks from 3M actually ended up going to hospitals here in America? Because Trump signed an order that stopped 3M from sending all of those masks to places like Canada and Mexico and everywhere else. So if you really want to think about it, the Making America Great Again and America First slogans actually fit what President Trump is actually doing policy-wise. You know what? They talked about hope with the last president. Don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. I am glad to have seen our first black president. But what came out of that presidency did not help us at all. The only thing it gave us was hope. And we can't do nothing with hope. So I'm getting into about an hour. I did not want to be on here that long. I got a couple other projects I'm working on. But look, man, we can't do this no more. We cannot do this anymore. When will people realize that there are racists on both sides? And we can't do anything about it. So the only thing we can do at this point in time is vote for the person who has the most policies that affect us in a positive manner. We can't change the system, not as we are right now. But we can move the needle if we vote for people who have policies that work in our favor. Peace and blessings. Deuces.